out your hose and grab your can. We're about to integrate another Pest Geek podcast. Hi, everybody. Frank Hernandez here, and welcome to the Pest Geek podcast, bringing you the latest information on pests, products, and politics from today's leading industry sources to help you start, manage, and grow your pest control business.
Hey, welcome back. Welcome back to another edition of the Pest Geek podcast. I am Frank Hernandez, your Pest Geek, here discussing all things pest. We want to remind our audience to join in on the revolution. That's right, join in on the conversation, be part of the society. Pest Geek Podcast Listeners Group on Facebook. And we're on YouTube. We're on the web, pestgeekpodcast.com. Check out there the notes, everything that we put into the podcast. They're all on there. And now for today's topic.
Welcome back. Welcome back to another edition of the Pest Geek Podcast. I am your host, Frank Hernandez, and we're going to be discussing the colony multiplication through both budding and mating flights of ants. And before I do that, I want to remind everybody, we've got a couple of new things on the website at pestgeekpodcast.com. One of them is an automatic, if you want to be a guest on our show, and you would like to be interviewed on any subject that you are an expert on, that you know about, be more than glad to go to our website and click on guest and be our guest. There's a form there that tells you the date that's available. You basically fill out that form, choose the date you want, and on there, and we will get you interviewed for the podcast. There's a registration form that you can put in your bio, all of your information that you want, whatever it is you want to talk about, and we'll get you automatically on the podcast. And the other one is for those of you who don't talk, who are afraid of the microphone. I get a lot of people who call me and tell me, what can I do? I want to be on the podcast, but I just can't talk. I'm just not a talker. I'm afraid of the microphone. I get nerves. That's just not it for me, but I can write. Well, we've got, for those people that want to be a guest writer, do a guest post, you can. There is a guest post on our website at pestgeekpodcast.com, and there you can just basically write an article on whatever subject you think the Pest Geek Society is really going to benefit from. And we will post it in our blog, and it will be published. You get a backlink on it. You will also, your information will be on there. So, guys, hey, look, chances of you getting published anywhere on the articles you write is going to be slim to none. We have a place for people that can write, but they can't talk. And a lot of you are introverted, and you're just not going to be behind a microphone. It's very uncomfortable for you, but you're better off writing an article. Well, if you want to write a good article, hey, there's a spot for you there. Also, we're looking to create an image sharing function on our website, because a lot of people are looking for images to do on their blog posts, on their website, but they can't find any really good relevant images regarding what they want to write about. A lot of them are just very generic. So if you've got images and you want to share them, and I'm going to be posting, I think I've got something like 13,000 images of different things on my computer, in a file that I've taken for the last 12 years. I take pictures of everything. So we're thinking about sharing all of those images and creating kind of a gallery where you can just basically upload an image and share it with people, but you can also download images for free. And we're looking at doing that on our site. So be part of what's going on. Go to the website, pestgeekpodcast.com. Check out what's there. There's a lot of things that we're doing that we're going to be putting on. But in today's topic of understanding the difference of how ants multiply the colonies, or how they actually become make colonies or make mounds in some cases. Some make colonies, some make mounds. We're going to be discussing the difference between budding and mating flights. And I get a lot of calls during the year, especially during termite swarm season, where we get calls from people saying, hey, I've got a termites in my house, and I start to talk to them about, tell me about what it looks like. And identifying it. And sometimes I just tell them, just text me a picture. And no, you don't have termites. You have ants that are flying, that are swarming at this time of year. And a lot of people get confused by that. So, and even technicians, they can't tell the difference sometimes between a fly and a flying ant, because ants do grow wings. Ants belong to the order of Hymenoptera, which is basically means a membrane wing, and they have the ability to produce wings. They're in the same family, the same order as bees and wasps. So they have the capability, when they're going to mate, to produce wings. Now, they're in the family of Firmicidae, which is what we have as an ant family. But in the case of colonies that are made through mating flights, what we usually have is a new queen that grows wings and flies off from an old colony to mate with a male, to create a new colony. Now, these are known as monogynous, or the term monogeny, of meaning mono, meaning singular. They're usually single queen nests. So ants that have single queen nests are going to usually have these mating flights or these swarms. And so what she does is she flies off. Also, the males will produce wings and fly around. It is very interesting that they have a very high success in some of these ant colonies of mating, where others are. It's a very risky proposition. I mean, you're flying out of your nest, and you're going to mate somewhere in the air, where you find a male, and you could be eaten by predators, by other insects that eat ants. So it's a very risky proposition for ants to do, especially when you're the only queen in that colony. And so they will fly off, make a mate, and then she goes and finds a suitable site for nesting. At this point, she drops her wings and excavates a new nest. Now, the male will also basically just die shortly after mating. So he doesn't serve any other purpose in this situation other than to mate. Okay? So she does this, excavates a new nest, and she basically cloisters herself within the nest for several weeks or more until her eggs mature. And then she lays them. Once she lays her eggs in the nest, she will personally care for the young. Some of these ants will use their own wings as food, as protein, to be able to survive during this period where she has to get food. She seldom or ever will leave that nest again in her life. Okay? After she's gone through one of the life cycles and is creating workers, she's going to rely on the workers to groom and feed her colony. And until after the first generation has been reared. So now you have ants like carpenter ants, crazy ants, harvester ants, rover ants, thief ants, white-footed ants, and some people, and termites. And termites do this, and this is why people get confused with ants, because they're usually swarming at the same time of year. Like, I've had carpenter ants swarming at the same time as termites. And we just had another swarm of ants with crazy ants. And people were calling saying they've got flies in their house, and they've got fruit flies. Or they have, they think they got fungus gnats. And what they actually have are flying ants. Now, with most flying insects outside, there's really nothing you can do at that point when they're swarming to control them outside, because they're swarming just like any other flying insect is. You could probably spray and get a reduction. If they get inside, you can still use baits, and you can still spray around windows, and you can treat the windows and the entry points. But if people have their lights on at night in the porch, those ants are going to swarm around there. They like lights. If you've got lights inside the house, you're going to attract them if they're swarming at night and bringing them in if your windows aren't well sealed. If you live like in Florida, where a lot of windows are, not well sealed, they're from the 50s and 70s when the house was originally made. Those ants are going to fly in. Anything is going to easily fly in. So that's what happens with flying ants when they're mating, and they're able to do that. Now, there's another type of colony creation where it's called budding. And budding with some ant species, we're dealing with now polygynous ants versus monogenous ants. Polygynous meaning more than one, poly, where we get the word polymer, which is a combination of different things to make a product. In the case of exoskeletons on insects, where they produce it through chitin. Chitin is a polymer. Okay, and so it's made from different things to create that exoskeleton. Well, in the case of the queen ants, usually they're in colonies that have multiple queens, more than one, and workers will often accompany a queen to create a new nest. Now, people get this confused with budding with fragmenting, and fragmenting is an environmental response to being disturbed, where they will move and distribute their eggs, the larvae, the food, other workers, and other queens to other existing nets that have already been budded or created buds. Okay, so there's a big difference between fragmentation and budding. You can cause a nest in some species to fragment by disturbing it. You can also cause it to bud, and then they will create a new nest because now they're threatened and they have to move, and basically they just go and create a new nest. So both budding and fragmenting, there we go, just lost my train of thought. Fragmenting can be both through, in the case of ghost ant, it can be both a response to an environmental stress that they're going through. But generally, the budding will occur when they do it. Now, sometimes they won't leave with a queen. Sometimes they'll just be workers that will leave and just create a new colony. They'll take, brood, and they'll take, eggs, and they will create sometimes with and without mature queens. So they can have the ability to do this and create their own queen. Workers carry the immature eggs to other nesting sites, and in some cases, in most of these cases, the workers rear the immature up as reproductive males and females. Okay, so they have that capability. Ants that do this, that are common for this, are the most common are the Argentine ant and the Pharaoh ant. They're notorious for this. This is why they're so difficult to control, because they can both bud and translocate or move or fragment everything they have. So this is how they survive in very stressful environments. A lot of these ants that do both the budding and the fragmentation will become dominant ant species. Okay, this is the big danger that we have with a lot of these ants. They become the predominant ant or dominant ant species in that area, sometimes displacing other ant species. Okay, so also the ghost ant, the odorous house ant, does this. Then we have ants that do both. They're capable of doing both budding and mating flights. And this is the imported fire ant. Now, this is the reason why the imported fire ant has been able to come into this country. All these ants are known as tramp ants or exotic invasive ant species. And they're able to do this because they have this versatility of doing both. Now, they can be both monogyne colonies or polygyne or polygyne colonies. Okay? So they can have both single queen and multiple queen. And this is an interesting aspect about red imported fire ant colonies. the alates from the monogyne colony tend to mate and disperse in considerable distances, so in large areas. But the budding from polygyne or polygyne colonies tend to mate very near where they were originally. They don't disperse as far. Okay, they create what are underground tunnels, and then they create or move when they fragment, they move everything to another colony, another bud, through underground tunnels. So one of them tends, by the way, between red imported fire ants, the monogyne colony and the polygyne colony, the genetically they're indistinguishable one from another. You can't really tell if one species is a queen that is the only queen in that colony, or if there are multiple queens, by looking at the workers, by looking at the queens. There is no way to distinguish them, okay? So through polygyny, these are the ones that are done by budding. The population is always going to be a portion of the territory within a monogyne population. Okay, polygyne workers show little or no aggression toward their nestmates. This is in contradiction to the monogyne colony, which they are aggressive to other ants. They do not defend their territories. They do exchange the workers and brood in the polygyne colony of fire ants or red imported fire ants. Workers and some queens will immigrate through what I said, underground tunnels, but they will also take on these colonies others that have recently mated, which is really because their main focus of these polygyne colonies is to basically populate very quickly. They have to populate. So since they don't invest any effort into creating wings or alate production, all of their energy is focused on colony production, producing high growth rates. Typically, the difference between a monogyne colony and a polygyne colony is that the polygyne colony has 2 to 6x the amount of workers in the mound. So that's one way that you can tell whether one colony is by the amount of workers is usually going to be up to 6x. The ratio of larvae also in a polygyne colony or a polygynous colony is going to be much higher. The amount of larvae that they also have. Like I said, queens are accepted when they have recently mated. New queens can really enter. They're not, like I said, they're not aggressive to other colonies. Now, on the monogyne side, the difference is these guys mate, or they consist of daughters of a single mother. So in the monogyne where they do have mating flights or nuptial flights, they have a single mother and a single father. They will defend their territory. They will attack, non-nest mates, because how do they know? Well, pheromone is the way they know that they belong to that colony because of the pheromone. They'll attack and kill intruders. So if another ant species tries to get in there, or another ant try to move from a polygynous colony into a monogynous colony, they're going to get attacked. Now, remarkably, in the fire ant, the imported fire ant, their success rate is really high, like 95% successful at mating, versus the polygynous colony don't have a really high success rate. So that's one of the things that one differs from the other. After mating flights, newly mated queens from a monogyne colony are likely to band together in small social groups that cooperate in rearing of the brood, but only one queen is going to survive. They're going to kill each other off and fighting among themselves, and they will execute by workers. They will be executed by other workers. Only one is going to survive in the end to maintain that colony. And obviously, she has to go ahead and mate again and create another colony in order to keep surviving. So that is the difference in different ant species, in different types of ant colonies, different types of colonies, whether they have a single queen or multiple queen. And, that's one of the things that people get awfully confused about. Customers get confused about this. Technicians get confused. I got technicians that, saying, I'm having a heck of a time controlling big-headed ant. And how or I have a terrible time controlling ghost ant, or I have a terrible time controlling odorous house ant, or controlling pharaoh ant in a building. It's going to be a nightmare because of these breeding habits. And the more you understand, and the more the customer understands about the nature of this ant, that if they got one of these ants, they got one of these invasive species, they got one of these tramp ants, that the ant is going to be more difficult to control than other types of ant species or other types of insects that are not predominant or they're not dominant in those neighborhoods. So I hope this helps you guys. Hey, until next time, this is Frank the Pest Geek wishing you a pestacular day.
We hope you have enjoyed this edition of the Pest Geek Podcast. Until next time, have a pestacular day.
Thank you for listening to the Pest Geek Podcast. If you have enjoyed the Pest Geek Podcast, please give us a rating, write a review, or subscribe to the channel. You can join the Pest Geek Society by visiting pestgeekpodcast.com. Thank you for listening. See you next time.